is Mr. Erik, and today we're joined by Dr. Nicole Posth from the University of Copenhagen, the geology section. She's going to tell you a little bit about what she does and some experiences she's had in the past in her field. Hello, Dr. Posth.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing? So what kind of scientist are you, and what is your daily routine like? Let's put it that way.
So I'm a geomicrobiologist and I work at a university. So my job on a daily basis split between teaching. So I teach classes of university students. And I also have my own laboratory where I have researchers working with me, looking at how bacteria interact with minerals. So that's what a geomicrobiologist usually focuses on. I can show you a little bit about what that looks like.
Sure.
Here on my screen. So here you can see, this is called a scanning electron microscope. This is a special type of microscope that can show you sort of 3D images of cells. And here you see a culture of cells. These guys here, they're rod-shaped, and they are living with and around iron minerals. So these are different sort of iron minerals that you're seeing here.
That's great.
And so as a geomicrobiologist, this maybe sounds quite exotic, but it's not as exotic as you think. And I think most of you have actually seen bacteria that I study in your daily lives. So here you can see, for example, most of you have probably passed like a pond or a stream of slow moving water, and you've seen what are called cyanobacteria. They cause this sort of greenish, slimy surface here on a river. If you've ever been to Yellowstone or another park where you see, let's say, geysers and things like this, you may have seen sort of fancy bacteria that can use all sorts of crazy things like arsenic and an iron and sulfur. You see also the colors they form. You may have seen sort of a crack in a mountain stream or something where you see a lot of orange guck. That's also something we study in geomicrobiology, these sort of bacteria. But even if you've just been down to the coast, down to the beach, that's also everything that you're seeing here in the mud and in the sand. There's always bacteria at work, and all of these different type of bacteria are things that I study as a geomicrobiologist.
Great. You also said that you are studying microplastics now, right? Could you tell the kids a little bit about microplastics?
Right, so my lab and the people that work with me, they're interested in understanding the plastic problem that we have right now. I'm sure you've heard about it, that we have a lot of plastic pollution, especially in our oceans. And so one thing that we're interested in is to see whether or not bacteria can actually break down or eat that plastic or affect the plastic in some way. So I have a bunch of pictures here as well that I can show you. Some of the work that we're doing. And as Mr. Erik has told you, I work in Denmark, in the city of Copenhagen. So what we did is we went down to the harbor. This is one of the marinas that we have in Copenhagen, one of the close ones. And what we've done is that we put little pieces of plastic here. You can see these sort of metal stakes. These are actually just regular tent stakes. If any of you have ever gone camping, we took some of those and we put some plastic in between. Made some of our own ones here where we have also plastic in these little windows. And we have a diver that works with us. And so we stand here on the dock, and he jumps in for us. And he takes water samples because we also have to take those. And then he takes these stakes and he's pushed them into the sand underneath. And we've let that plastic sit there for a few months. And these have actually been in for a full year. So this is something we did last January, this picture. And now we've pulled these up and we're looking to see what's happened to the plastic. So we look at them also under a microscope. So I've got some pictures here of what we found. So this is on the plastic surface. We see obviously a few different crazy things that you may not have seen before. So this is sort of from further away. And this thing that you see here is a neat sort of organism that's found in water, both in lakes, but also in the ocean. It's called a diatom. And you can see that they have all these really neat forms. But what's been particularly interesting for us is if you take a look over here, you look a little bit closer. And this is a broken down piece of an old diatom. You can see that we do have bacteria here and here and here on the surface. So what we're trying to figure out now is we know they're there, So the question is, what are they doing?
What's really amazing and what strikes me right away is how artificial these like actual organic things are. They're basically multicellular animals, right? So.
Well, these guys and even people that work with this all the time. I mean, of course, this is exciting when we see this as well. So, yeah, you can see that they're really structured, and we have a lot of pictures of these. Even though we're studying these little guys over here, you can see them here. These are actually the bacteria, and this is just a close-up of them.
Truly amazing. The other question is, do you have any stories about working out in the field, or anything that you would like to talk about in terms of like what it means to be a scientist and working in the field? Because I mean, apparently you're not the person that goes diving, right? So that water was probably cold, I guess.
Well, I mean, I always felt very bad when the diver went in, especially because that was in January that they took that dive. But you go in with a neoprene, a diving suit. It's actually a dry suit. So if everything is closed like it should be, you are actually completely dry under that suit. And so we were up actually standing in the wind, and that was actually colder or cooler than the diver that was in the water. So he came out feeling fine, and we were quite cold ourselves.
But you're still limited to the amount of time you can work in the cold water, right?
Yeah, and you have to have a special diving certificate. So you can be a PADI diver, but to be a research diver, you have to have a special training, because you're usually going into the water with a number of different equipment, and you have to know how to handle yourself there and be particularly careful. So the man that works with us, he has a special research diving license.
Seems like an interesting job as well.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think, and you can, once you start studying, there's offers to do those sort of training courses. So some of the students do it, but in our institute, we have one of the workshop guys that is also a diver.
I know that you've worked on a research vessel. Could you tell the kids a little bit about what it is, what a research vessel is, and how it is to work on it? Because I know.
Yeah. So I mean, I've been quite lucky to be working in a few different areas. So I've worked on lakes where we go out in small rowboats. That's how I kind of started. And in the past few years, I've been getting more into ocean science. And so I've been on some larger vessels where you go out for a number of weeks. One research vessel that I went on, we sailed from Iceland back to Denmark. That was a few years ago. And that's fantastic because everything is just really organized on a ship, and you have to really sort of follow the captain's, he or she is really in charge. Yeah, and you can do some very neat research there, but it can also be tough because you can also, for example, be on board in a storm, and then a lot of people are getting sick. So it's a very, very special situation to be on a cruise like that. One of my students just went on a cruise from Brazil over to the African coast, so that was 6 weeks long, and you really bond with everyone on board in time like that. But most recently, I've been in Vietnam, and I also have some pictures of that I can show you. And it wasn't on a large research vessel, actually, and I'll show you what we did there, because you're not always on a big ship. You have to sort of be creative and think of the best way to get your research done. So the reason we went to Vietnam was for the plastics research. And you can see here, we went to the eastern coast of Vietnam, to a large city that is actually also a tourist location. A lot of tourists go there every year. It's called the city of Nha Trang. And it's very beautiful, but they also have a large problem with plastic pollution. So while you have these sort of beautiful bay areas and a lot of nice tourist attractions, you also have locations where you really have just a lot of plastic on the coast. So what we did, because I'm in a university, is that we had a course, and students were able to come with us out to Vietnam and run their own projects there. And we advised them during this time. So what we did is we went off, organized a boat, and it wasn't actually a research boat. What it was a tourist boat. So that's what our research vessel looked like. We rented the tourist boat for 3 days, and the crew of that boat, they helped us out to do our research. We went out into the Bay Area, and we did a number of different tests. So we collected plastic, and the water here is very, very warm and very calm. So, and the weather is very warm. So the students were actually more than happy to just jump in the water and collect what they could find. And so these are the sort of plastic pieces that we could find there that we started investigating. We also took some water samples. This is a special device that you can take water samples with, and we can do different tests on them to see the quality of the water. We also took some samples here to look under the microscope to see what sort of microbes and bacteria we could find in the water column and the sediment. Then again here we had some professional research divers with us, and they were diving down to get some mud samples for us to look at whether we could find some plastics in the mud. And then you also do a number of different tests here where you can measure all different things in the water, like as you go down through the water, how the temperature changes, how different properties change, how light changes as you go down to depth, to give us an idea of where plastics are and what the environment is that they are in. And so this was really great. We got to go out with our students, and they got to learn new things. And for us, it's really fun to go out with our students and do things like this. So all in all, that is a really nice place to work, and we have really nice Vietnamese colleagues there. And I hope that we can go back and continue looking at this area.
It's truly amazing how you get to travel all around the world as a scientist, meet many different people, and do your research, because you're basically doing a research study on the global scale.
Oh, there's plastic research all over the world right now, because it is a problem everywhere. I mean, it's not at all just in Europe or United States or in Asia. Asia is particularly interesting for people right now because they do have a really large issue with plastic pollution, and has a lot to do with population density and also waste control and just a number of different factors that cause a lot of heightened plastic pollution. But absolutely, if something is in the ocean, it travels all over the planet, and everyone's interested in trying to figure it out. And that is really cool about science, because you do get to travel a lot, and you get to work with people from all different places, and get to meet a lot of interesting people, and people that just have great hobbies and skills, like these research divers. They're both Vietnamese. They lived in a few different places in the world. They lived in the United States for a few years. They lived in Europe for a few years, and they work with scientists also. So all these sort of things, you work a lot during the day, and you're tired at night, but it's always great to sit around with people in the evening and talk. So it's a lot of fun, and it's really nice to do it with students as well.
If kids would be interested in becoming a scientist, right? Is there anything you suggest for them to do? Like, it's always important
I honestly think that the most important thing to be a scientist is to be curious, and to be not afraid to try new things. So if you're curious about the world around you, and let's say you're worried that you're not good enough in math, or that you're worried that you're not good enough in physics, you just work at it, right? You try at it. And the curiosity is what drives it. And being able to communicate what your findings are, and being sort of able to get along with people and to ask questions. Never forget asking questions. You never feel silly asking a question, because that's where you learn, is when you trust yourself to ask.
Thank you very much for doing this interview, and we wish you
You're
much
welcome.
success in your future endeavors.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep.